is Nikki from My Healthy Beginning, and today we're going to talk about 3 tips for your digestion support. So I've got a few things to say about that, and then we'll just give you those 3 little tips at the end. Hippocrates says all disease begins in the gut. And one of the things that I like to focus on is disease is dis-ease. So anytime we have discomfort, like today I'm pulling on my neck, I've got a lot of stress in my neck and shoulders, and then I'm looking at, is it this, and this stress, or is it that, and that stress, or did I not get enough water, right? So then I look at where does that dis-ease come from, so that those 2, what do you call it, a prefix and a suffix, so to speak, connect, and then ending up in disease in the body. So all disease begins in the gut. My biggest mistake in my early days coaching people around their health would be to ask them about their bowel movements in this way. I would say, how are your bowel movements doing? Or are you pooping? And they go, yeah, good, like that. And I'd be like, okay, great. And I'd put a little note, in their soap notes. And it wasn't until several visits down the road that I would say something like, okay, it's so good. You said your bowels are good. You're going, 2 times a day or once a day at least. And then I would get deer in the headlights. And then I would panic because I'm thinking, well, what are they thinking? And why are they giving me deer in the headlights? And several of them would say things like, well, I only go like once a week, or I only go every other day. And then I would have to hide the sheer look of panic in realizing that is their norm. That is often what people have experienced in their lifetime. So when something like, are you pooping 2 to 3 times a day comes up, they're like, well, nobody's told me that I should be pooping 2 to 3 times a day. Or, they have kids and they're relying on Miralax and God knows what else to get these kids to poop. So whether it's a child or yourself, there's a reason you're not pooping, which whole other topic we could go on. But pooping is something that we need to know in terms of digestion, and how we're digesting our food is going to render, better or not so great results in the bathroom. So your body, I've got my notes again here, so this is why I'm glancing off to the side. You begin to digest the starches and the carbohydrates in your mouth. Then the acid in your stomach starts to break down the fat and the protein, which then breaks down even further in the small intestine. So once that digestion process is complete in the small intestine, that's when the nutrients begin to move through your body via the lymph and the blood. And you may have heard like of leaky gut syndrome. That's when the proteins, these undigested proteins, are leaking through into your bloodstream, and that's really where they're causing the problem. So when there's a lot of inflammation in the gut, leaky gut can be something that people end up with. And then we want to do a bunch of work around food. The bigger picture to remember is the reason that the food is a problem to begin with is because there are immune challenges and other toxicities creating inflammation in the body, in the gut, such that food becomes a problem for people. The process from digestion to elimination should take approximately 24 hours. So what that means is that the breakfast you ate yesterday should leave after the breakfast you eat today. So, if you eat something like salsa with corn in it, oftentimes you're going to see undigested corn. We just don't process. We don't break that down very easily. So you could say like, oh, I had that for lunch, but I had that for lunch like 2 days ago. Interesting. That's way too slow. Okay. So you want your motility to be about 24 hours from digestion to elimination. Now, if you've ever eaten beets, you will see that your poop ends up being red, and you panic for a quick second until you remember that you ate beets. And then the question is, how long ago was it that you consumed those beets? So if you're questioning your motility, kind of the beet challenge, if you will, is a really great thing. So roast them, grate them up raw in a salad, juice them, and then watch for them to come out the other end, and just kind of note how long that takes. If it's longer than 24 hours, then you've got some work to do on your digestion, and these tips will be helpful in moving you along in that right direction. Problems with digestion today for people include leaky gut, irritable bowel syndrome. I often say to my husband, if I were not in the field that I'm in and I were relying on Western medicine, I would have the big blanket statement or blanket diagnoses of irritable bowel syndrome. Nobody would know what to do with me. acid reflux, Crohn's disease, diverticulitis, SIBO, which is that small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, celiac, and more. Your symptoms, though, may be diverse, which is, again, why they have blanket statements like irritable bowel syndrome, and they don't know what to do with you. You might have constipation here. You might have diarrhea there. You might experience bloating or gas or even belching, and then belly fat is often a sign of digestion, dysfunction, if you will. So here are 3 tips. If you are a mother, or if you are a parent, think of how many times you actually sit down in a day to eat your meals. None. We eat while we're preparing breakfast for kids. We eat while we're making lunches. We eat dinner in order for them to eat dinner in order to get them out the door to the next thing. And so we don't sit. So, tip number 1 and how to support your digestion would be to just eat, sit while you are eating. And that will just make for slower eating in general. When we are sitting, you can still wolf down your food and you're surrounded by kids who are running around and not minding, and it can be stressful to sit at the dining room table with your whole family. But really just start by sitting down to eat your food. The second would be chewing your food slowly. Now, this one actually is hard for me because I realize how quickly I eat food. And then I also realize how quickly certain foods show up as disagreeing with me. If I eat a lot of raw vegetables, I'm bound to be very bloated in very short order. So there are different steps that I have to take around my digestion in order for that to work. I do better with more cooked, sauteed, roasted vegetables, juiced vegetables, things like that. So it's recommended that you give your body at least 20 minutes to eat your food. So that's why in tip number 1, I said sit. You can sit, you're more likely to slowly eat your food. So sit to eat your food. Number 2, chew your food slowly. It's easy to do when you're eating with other people and you're chatting, and you can find that you're slowly working your way through a meal and you can chew more slowly. You're listening to people tell stories, they're talking about their day. You can even watch people take a bite, chomp, chomp, swallow. Drink a bunch of ice cold water, take a bite, chomp, chomp, swallow. And it's painful to watch that because that they're not digesting their food, and they're going to be the ones that are clearing their throat and burping and getting up to use the bathroom. This should be the thing you're thinking about the next time you sit down at a table or a meal with several people. You just want to notice people who take a bite, maybe even put down your fork, put down your spoon, put down your utensil, put your hands in your lap while you're chewing. So digestion experts say to chew your food, that means you take a bite of, you got steak with a piece of broccoli, up to 32 times before you swallow it. I have tried to do that before, and it's for a while, you're just moving around baby mush because it just gets to a point where you just feel you can't chew it anymore. Or mashed potatoes, you can't chew those 30 times. The idea is just to slow down. Like I said, set down your utensil, put your hands in your lap, things like that will be really helpful. So just take on that challenge at some time. We've got a holiday weekend coming up. Lots of eating will be taking place. So just notice if there's a meal that you tend to eat more quickly, if there's a meal you tend to eat more slowly, where you can take your time, where you don't feel rushed. And then there are feelings that come with our eating. I feel anxious. I feel relaxed. I feel tired. Noticing things like that too are going to definitely play into how we treat ourselves when we're eating. What is the whole kind of ambient environment when you're eating? The third is drinking room temperature water. I was really thrilled when I learned this tip because I've never been one for ice cold beverages. Maybe on a super, super hot day to just cool down really quickly, or, you're on the beach or something like that, or on a boat, that tastes good. But as an all day thing, room temperature water has always been my go-to, probably because when I get a minute, I guzzle, I'll drink a whole bottle, or I'll drink, a glass or two. And you can't do that without getting brain freeze if you're drinking ice cold water. So the ice cold water will constrict your blood vessels, particularly those aiding in your digestion. So it makes it harder to digest your food. Here's what I think is interesting. when we go out to eat, most of the time people are eating foods they shouldn't be eating or normally wouldn't eat, but then they're also being served ice water. So a really simple thing to do in the next time you're eating out to change the support of your digestion is just to ask for water with no ice. It's a super simple thing and they don't look at you like you're crazy, okay? So your 3 tips are eat slowly, chew your food. I'm sorry, sit while you eat, chew your food, and then drink room temperature water. Some people even say not to drink water before you sit down to a meal, and some say drink water before you sit down to a meal because it'll decrease your appetite. I would say play with it and see what feels right to you. I don't know that guzzling water is going to be a worthwhile endeavor while you're eating, but I think a sip, a few bites of food, moving your way through mindfully, mindfully eating, mindfully drinking. So bringing mindfulness, bringing some intentionality to your meals, I think it's going to make a big difference for you and how you feel. And then if you are a parent, I think you're going to notice a difference too in your children. I think you're going to start to see your own habits showing up in your kids. Sometimes with my older kids, like they sit down, shovel, shovel, shovel. I'm like, what is the rush? What are you doing? But then I think about all those times where I'm just standing at the kitchen counter eating my meal and then, off I go. So being intentional is also really, really huge. Okay. So there are some digestion support tips for you today. If you are looking for optimal health, we can help you get there here at My Healthy Beginning. We do nutrition response testing. We've got nutrition coaching specific to supporting your digestion. Those would be quite helpful. You can reach us at www.myhealthybeginning.com, or you can find us 612-418-3801. Any questions or comments, please leave them below and we will get right with you. Thanks for joining us.